Good morning. Welcome to today's class. This day we will discuss carbohydrates under glucose. This video will be in many parts, and so don't forget to click subscribe so as you get notified as you upload the other parts of this video. And as well, if you enjoyed the video, click like button so as we appreciate. Back to the topic, carbohydrates under glucose. Why did we package this topic this way? It is because it is known that the end product of carbohydrate is glucose. That is, whenever a carbohydrate food is being broken down, the end product of it is glucose. Glucose is a form at which the body makes use of that carbohydrate food. Okay, so no wonder why it is put this way, that when you see an athlete that is already tired, you don't give the person a loaf of bread, you give the person glucose. Why? It will give the person energy as fast as possible, because it is a form at which the body makes use of carbohydrate food. So it is the smallest unit of carbohydrate that the body needs to work with. Now, how does carbohydrate food, how does it break down to glucose? What happens? First, when you take bread, for instance, and put it into your mouth, with the help of your tongue and your teeth, it will get that bread masticated or broken down. So after breaking it down into smaller particles, what will happen is that the salivary enzymes in the mouth, that is the amylase, the ptyalin, because ptyalin is an amylase enzyme, it will mix with those already broken down bread. After mixing with it, it will soften it so as it can pass through the esophagus or gullet down to the stomach. As it reaches the stomach, the salivary enzymes, the activities of the salivary enzyme will stop at the stomach. Why? It's because the pH of the stomach is low. That is, the pH is acidic. It is very acidic. The pH is around 1.2. So because the pH is around 1.2, it will inactivate the activity of the salivary enzyme. The acidic substances or acidic nature of the stomach, or the gastric acid, hydrogen chloride of the stomach, will help in mixing the food, mix it to form chyme. And as the food is still inside the stomach, the pancreas will release its amylase called pancreatic amylase. So as the food forms chyme, it moves or pushes down to the GIT, known as small intestine. In the small intestine, it has three parts: duodenum, ileum, and jejunum. The duodenum is acidic, so it moves to the duodenum part of the small intestine. As it gets to the duodenum part, the pancreatic amylase will act on it, break it down to maltose. Then the GIT, or intestinal wall of the GIT, will produce maltate that will also break down the maltose to glucose. Now, as they have been broken down to glucose, it is in the form of glucose that the microvilli will be able to absorb it into the bloodstream. Note, if the carbohydrate food is something like sucrose or lactose, once it gets to the small intestine, the sucrase and the lactase will help to break it down to galactose, fructose, as well as glucose. So the galactose and the fructose will be reconverted to glucose, because it is in the form of glucose that the body will make use of it. Now, it has been converted to glucose, and the microvilli has reabsorbed it into the bloodstream. Now, if the glucose in the bloodstream is very, very high, it will be converted to glycogen and stored in the liver. But if it is okay, once you go to the liver for screening, after screening, you follow other processes, go to the heart. As you get to the heart, you move through the aorta to round the cells of the body. Okay, So as you move round to the cells of the body, it is as enters into the individual cells of the body that it will undergo other processes that we want to discuss in this video to produce energy in form of ATP. Now, it is noted that in the cells of the body, in most organisms, such as eukaryotes, we have animal cells which has cytoplasm, mitochondrium as well. So this glucose, as it enter into the cells of the body, it will first move into the cell cytosols, that is the cytoplasm of the cell. As it enters there, it will undergo a process called glycolysis. What is glycolysis? It's simply a process, an oxidative and oxygen independent metabolic process that is used to break down glucose molecule to pyruvate. Don't worry yourself, in the next video we will discuss this glycolysis in full details. So as the glycolysis takes place, it will break down the glucose in absence of oxygen. That's why it say oxygen independent metabolic pathway. It will break down the oxygen, it will break down the glucose into pyruvate. After getting to pyruvate, the pyruvate will go into the mitochondrion. You know, mitochondrion requires oxygen. Activities in mitochondrion requires oxygen. So as it gets into the mitochondrion, TCA or tricarboxylic acid cycle, known as Krebs cycle and also known as citric acid cycle, will take place. After taking place, then the next activity or the next process called electron transport chain will also take place. This TCA cycle or tricarboxylic acid cycle and the electron transport chain both requires oxygen for their activities. So after these three processes have taken place, the glycolysis, the TCA or Krebs cycle or citric acid cycle, and also the electron transport chain. After these three activities have taken place on this same issue we talk about, glucose, it will produce a total of 38 ATP. So the ATP produced is around 38 ATP according to calculation. Now, in the video follow this, we will see what happened in glycolysis. What exactly happened in glycolysis? You say it takes place in the cell's cytosol, cytoplasm of the cell. What especially or what happens in the glycolysis? After seeing it, also watch another video to see what happened in TCA cycle or citric acid cycle or Krebs cycle. We also see what happens there. As we watch all this, we'll see all the coenzymes that is involved, all the cofactors that are involved, where we have reversible processes and irreversible processes, and at the end we will now see how to calculate the total ATP generated from one molecule of glucose ingested or absorbed into the body. Please keep in touch with our video. If you like the video, click like and don't forget to click subscribe as you enjoy it. See you in the next video on glycolysis. Thank you for watching.